Thanks so much for choosing us. I am Pius Kojo Baka. Straight to our very first story. The Ghana cedi could come under pressure this week following the unexpected increase in inflation and the probability of an interest rate hike by the U.S. Federal Reserve. That's according to a forecast by some currency analysts. There is more in the following report.
The cedi lost marginal ground against the major trading currencies last week after the Ghana Statistical Service announced an unexpected increase in inflation to 42.2%. It closed the week with a 0.85% loss against the US dollar on the retail market, bringing its year-to-date loss to about 14%. This is despite an injection of $32 million by the Bank of Ghana into the spot market. This week, analysts expect an increase in demand for foreign exchange and limited foreign exchange interventions by the Bank of Ghana. However, failure by the cedi to stabilize against the dollar may push fuel prices up and consequently increase inflation.
Meanwhile, chief economist at Second Stacks, Benjamin Boache, is projecting a hike in monetary policy rate by the Bank of Ghana following the forecast by some currency analysts. According to him, he expects the central bank to respond vigorously, although he believes an interest rate hike by the U.S. Federal Reserve will not impact the economy in the medium term.
I saw that inflation ticked up 1%. I don't believe it'll have too pronounced an impact on the currency in the medium term. But in the short term, I think we've seen that the cedi lost a little bit of ground last week. So it's probably priced in at this point. Inflation remains very high at 42.2%. And what's particularly worrying about that is that the uptick was driven by food inflation and housing inflation. And, the impact of this kind of inflation will be quite pronounced because, people can easily opt out of these expenses, food and housing. So I expect that it'll put the government, the economic management team, the government on alert. But I wouldn't expect anything to be done simply because of one single data point. We'll still need to wait and see for more data to come in and to view the trend, which until this month was actually getting better, at least directionally. To be honest, I don't know that we should have paused on rate hikes when we did. I just don't think that 41% inflation is wait and see territory, So I would expect the Bank of Ghana to respond vigorously.
Moving on to one of our headline stories, an economist and lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Gov't has reacted to claims that consistent downgrades of Ghana's economy by credit rating agencies have contributed to the country's current economic woes. This comes after President Akufo-Addo criticized these rating agencies for unfairly and recklessly downgrading sovereign nations, particularly Ghana, during the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russian-Ukraine war. Speaking to Joy Business, Professor Gov't urged the government to get to work and improve on its indicators for macroeconomic stability.
In this keynote address at the 30th Annual General Meeting of the African Export and Import Bank, President Akufo-Addo said the ratings from these agencies are not in the best interest of developing countries like Ghana. He said such ratings put undue pressure on African economies.
And I can comfortably and convincingly say this. As the AU champion for African financial institutions and leader of a country which recently had to deal with one of the most difficult periods in its post-independent history, difficulties which were exacerbated by the reckless behavior of rating agencies that engaged.
Professor Gov't, speaking to Joy Business after the breakfast meeting, says he disagrees with these assertions by the president, explaining that these rating agencies did not kick out the country from the capital market, but instead Ghana lost it.
I understand the rating agencies. In the last 1.5 years, Ghana has suffered a number of downgrades. So to that extent, we say that yes, the president is spot on, that we have been downgraded quite seriously. But I do not agree with the president that they have been reckless with their rating, because the methodology that they use is available for everyone to see. And if you use the same methodology or even you vary it, you will still come to the conclusion that the ratings have been largely fair, right? And therefore, it's very difficult to attribute bias to what they have done, because my understanding is that these same rating agencies in the time past, even under this current administration, have given us good ratings. And on the back of that, we have gone to the capital markets to go and then borrow. And therefore, I'm not too sure that they will just change suddenly because they are anti-government or they are reckless. But we will not say that the rating agencies kicked us out of the market. The right way to put it is that Ghana lost market access.
He also described Ghana's method in restoring debt sustainability as unnecessary. According to him, the move will rather impose hardship on Ghanaians. He stressed on the need for government to explore diverse ways of ensuring private sector growth to support the economy.
We can call this. That's what I'm saying, that there's a way to do a fiscal adjustment that preserves the cash flow of households and businesses. And we chose not to do that one. In fact, we could reach almost the same point in fiscal adjustment if we decided that we're going to adopt a lean government. You can even look at tax from two perspectives. Tax as an investment. So there are countries that lower their taxes as a way of promoting what? Businesses. So that when businesses grow, look, assuming we had, like, if you go and check top 20 businesses in Africa, top 50 businesses in Africa, you will not find Ghana in there. If we are looking for top 20 rich Africans, Ghana is missing. If you pick, so the point that I'm making is that the method we have chosen to restore debt sustainability is going to impose unnecessary hardship. And we can avoid that.
Now, government says it's expected to receive about $6.2 billion from its multilateral partners between 2023 and 2026. This, it says, will help in economic growth. For Joy Business, James Ishen.
Meanwhile, Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Benjamin Boakye, has questioned the viability of Ghana's procurement processes, indicating it is characterized by fraud. According to him, this has led to the misappropriation of funds and consequently affected the country's economic growth and development.
The biggest crime of our country is our procurement system, where consistently it has been reviewed, and we know that corruption is so massive in our procurement system. And we have tracked it. It will be difficult for you to find any government contract above $1 million go through competitive tender in this country. It is so sourced. And not just because you go on the shelf and you can see 1 million, and government also went for it for 1 million, which you wouldn't have problem with. You will see 1 million thing on the shelf, and the government will go for it for 10 million, and it will still be so sourced. Go through the numbers. We all have to be interested. The chairs that government procure, how much do they buy them? We all go to the market. The basic things that government procure, 5 times more than what you can buy on the shelf. But we watch them happen, and then they crystallize into debt, and they have the power of the state to pass laws to tax you more, and we are watching. So we can no longer be that kind of citizens hoping to adjust in difficult times, but we need to get the government to do the heavy lifting.
Now, ratings agency Fitch says banks in Ghana would have recorded huge losses in 2022 if a flexible treatment had been applied to the net present value calculation. According to the UK-based firm, the intervention by the Ghana Association of Banks helped to reduce the expected losses of the financial institutions. Now, banks recorded about 6.6 billion cedis net losses last year after several billions of cedis were written off as bad debt due to the domestic debt exchange program. Speaking at a webinar on the takeaways from the restructuring for sovereigns and banks, Senior Director of Financial Institutions responsible for Europe, Middle East and Africa, Mahim Desanaki, said the Bank of Ghana did well with its forbearances measures.
The extent of losses would have been much greater if there was a flexible treatment applied to the use of the discount rate when they calculated the NPV losses. So the Ghana accounting kind of bodies decided on a discount rate of around 60 to 20%, and that reduced the NPV losses. But having said that, the NPV losses were about 50%, and that led to net losses for the banks for 2022, and it had a capital impact. At the same time, the Ghanaian authorities came up with forbearance measures. They reduced the minimum capital requirement, and they allowed the phase-in of these losses in the calculation of capital.
Let's now talk energy. And organizations are asking for answers following reports that government intends to lease Tema oil refinery worth $700 million to a private company, Toronto Asset Management, at $22 million for 6 years. Now, the group, according to leaked documents, is allowed to refine 8 million barrels of oil a year by paying $1 million every year as rent. Energy strategist Dr. Yusuf Suleiman is, however, optimistic that this will change the fortunes of the sector.
At the time, I also chanced this particular release, talking about these figures, with the investors stand the chance to benefit like $700 million US. On the surface or superficially, that I wouldn't have any problem as long as the refinery is going to run efficiently, and there will be value for that. It's better than the refinery lying down. However, I mean, if a deal of such nature, of that mammoth nature, in terms of quantum and in terms of the stakes that are involved, and we don't hear anything, from the context of the government, the stakeholders that are involved, that is worrying, and that brings a lot of uncertainties and transparency issues. So yes, like I mentioned, you're right there. If a deal of such nature, then we don't have communication coming out. Whoever is in charge of the deal, who are the people behind TAM, to champion this deal. Of course, there's a possibility that people feed in. There's going to be a lot of, conspiracy theories that will feed in. And so, if there's nothing to hide, I think it's beautiful. Let them come out and tell all stakeholders that who are the people behind the deal. This is what they have to offer. These are the timelines. Other than that, anything short of this, especially after the time this leak came out to social media, and we haven't had anybody coming out to either confirm it or deny it. And that's so worrying. That if nothing is done, if there's nothing like that happening, I think the government can come out and say this deal, what is on social media is we should discard it. And if there's something that is actually concrete and cogent, I think the policymaker will have to also accordingly come out and let us know that this is what the nation stands to benefit in this deal. Other than that, I think it's not going to bother well. And once transparency is eluded in this situation, it will not be good for the entire efficiency of the deal. Of course, we do have inherent inefficiencies that are in tow, that we need to debottleneck, that we need to remove. But I think that is a minor of the issue that TOR is facing. The major issue that TOR is facing is the external interferences, the unsolicited external interferences by political actors of the day. I think that has been the bane of TOR. If you notice over the last few years, a company, a critical asset like a refinery that is not running, and we managed to change over 5 managing directors, that is not acceptable.
You're still watching Business Life with me, Pius Kojo Baka. We've got more after this breather. Hello, welcome back. You're still watching Business Life. The Consumer Protection Agency has vowed to ensure the consumer bill is passed before the end of the year. According to the agency, consumers have been shortchanged for far too long, hence the need to speed up processes for the smooth passage of the bill to protect and ensure the safety of consumers. Here is more from a consumer forum on the passage of the consumer bill. Speaking at a consumer forum on the passage of the consumer bill, Chief Executive of the Consumer Protection Agency, Kofi Kapito, expressed hope the bill will be passed by the end of the year.
It's the Trade Ministry that should facilitate this. The Attorney General will only put the law together, and then Parliament will debate on it and pass. So we have to start from the Ministry of Trade. Yes, we have engaged them. Like I said, the caretaker minister even was in Parliament to promote the passage of the bill. If you have a minister on the floor of Parliament saying that, it gives you hope that it's very possible that the bill will be passed. But on the other hand, we should ask our parliamentarians, because they are there for us. If the law is good for us, we should ask them, how come not pushing for the bill to pass? So basically, hopefully before the end of the year.
Head of Financial Stability at the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Joseph Franz, called for the exemption of financial service products from the bill, since the central bank already has structured a robust system to protect consumers in the financial sector.
The practicality of taking dollar, taking pound, taking naira, taking will be too much for the central bank to facilitate. So, and it opens, it vents the system also for the same stability issues that I'm talking about. So it's better some of these things are addressed at that level. If it's escalated and it assumes a proportion that will affect the stability of the financial system, yes, the central bank will step in.
On his part, West Africa Regional Director of CATS International, Apiakusi Adumakun, called on the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Attorney General and Cabinet to fast-track processes for the speedy passage of the bill.
The bill emanates from the Executive, Ministry of Trade, it goes to Cabinet and AG. And this triangle is where the clog is. Until we're able to get over the clog and get to Parliament, the MPs will be very happy, because we've met the MPs on many occasions, and they say that, look, if the bill comes in any form, they will pass it.
The objective of the consumer bill is to protect, secure, and defend the rights of consumers through a structured institutional mechanism and legal framework. Now, a senior lecturer at the Department of Economics at the University of Ghana, Dr. Priscilla Chumesi-Bafo, has indicated that the COVID-19 levy has become a significant source of revenue for the country. Hence, it will be difficult for the government to strike it out of the mid-year budget review. Now, the business community has questioned the relevance of the COVID-19 levy following the declaration by the World Health Organization that COVID-19 is no more a pandemic. However, speaking in an interview on the AM show, Dr. Chumesi-Bafo believes an aggressive collection of taxes must be the way to go.
That government introduced a COVID levy, and now they are appealing to us to bear with them, because essentially when the levy is taken out, it creates a huge hole in government budgets. Where are they going to find resources to fill it? And I am not suggesting that it should stay, but if you look at the trajectory of taxation, the more the government succeeds in introducing a tax handle, it's very difficult for them to remove it. I mean, it will come in a different name, but certainly it is all because the way the structure is, it is difficult to get these things on. So once it comes in, you would find that at best, I'm sure I would not be surprised if, a name is given to the COVID levy, taken out of COVID, but probably some stabilization, something or something. And the point I am making is that because we are not generating enough, whenever a handle is placed in there and it becomes successful, it becomes very significant and difficult for government to take it out.
Now, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System has signed an agreement with the Stanbic Bank Ghana to support export trade. This is part of moves by the bank and the Afri-Exim Bank to increase intra-Africa trade and minimize the cost of doing business among African countries. The partnership will ensure that payment of goods and services are done seamlessly among member nations without any exchange rate cost. Head of Corporate and Investment Banking at Stanbic Bank Ghana, Tim Mugudis, explains the importance of the move.
The Pan-African Payment and Settlement System is a system which enables payments to go seamlessly from one African country in local currency to another African currency in their local currency. So we believe that this will facilitate trade at the continent. That's why we're here.
What was the importance of it, and how does it benefit the bank and your customers?
Look, it is critical that, traditionally when payments are being made, the switching goes to dollars and then back to local currency again. So with this system, what it will facilitate is the critical payments that go directly from one country to another, so that African countries can trade amongst themselves without the need to go through the dollar leg at all. So this will facilitate more intracontinental trade amongst the African countries.
I know some other banks are also doing this. What makes yours exceptional, and what should attract customers to come to your side and not the other banks?
So Stanbic Bank, we are part of the Standard Bank of South Africa group. We are present across the continent in 20 countries. And so we have the ability to deal and service all our clients in all of these countries through this Pan-African payment system. So we believe that, as soon as our clients come to us, they will see the benefit of our presence across the continent in different countries.
That's it for Business Live. I am Pius Kojobaka.